Well, we finished our 2023 AgResource crop tour. I'm joined here by Jim Quinton, Harry McCune. I'm Dan Bossy. We've driven, 1,700 miles in 3 days through Iowa and Illinois to get a sense of what crops are doing. Now, these are broad senses. We know that we can't do enough fields to get specific, but we do have generalities that we can talk about and go forward. And really, we're doing this ahead of the crop tour next week, which will give us a lot more data sets and samples that'll help us determine yield. So as we go through, some of the key highlights I think we'll get to. Jim, you brought a crop along here. Tell us what you think about the soybean crop that you've seen in the last couple of days.
It's not a crop failure. However, it's a crop with some limitations. This is stock. It's only got about 17 or 18 nodes. More nodes are usual. 20, 21, 22 nodes. So we're lacking a few nodes. That means you're lacking places for pods. So we got a little bit of a limitation on pod numbers. No matter how well they fill out, the pod numbers is a little bit backwards from a year ago. So that's the crop we got.
And if you look at the plant, is it going to bloom anymore? Have we seen many crops out that are going to add anything as we go forward?
Only just a handful south of here on the group 3 varieties. These are group 2s. They're done blooming. They might have set a little weak pod in a couple of places, which may grow into a 1 or 2 bean pod over the next 20 days. But if it doesn't get a little better treatment, it's going to abort those and just keep the main pods that you can see on the stem. And that's a good pod set, but it's not great. It's not going to be an 80 bushel bean field. It might not even be a 70 bushel bean field, but it'll be a good one.
Harry, what do you think about in terms of corn?
The corn is just quite variable. It seems that a lot of fields are shorter than what you might think. A lot of people thought that maybe that short corn wouldn't affect the yield, but I think it has trimmed the corn yield back some in those areas where the corn didn't have the rain to let it grow during the latter part of June and going into July, and the heat that we had there just limited it. So it's just going to be off from a little bit from what I would say most people's normal APHs are.
Yeah, and as we look at corn, one thing that comes through to me is you look at kernel size. This year's kernel size was just not up to set. So instead of using maybe 85 or 87,000 kernels per bushel, it may be over 90, maybe as much as 92,000. And this is going to take away to some degree from yield potential. So as we stand back from it, this is not a failure. We got those rains in the end of June. We a couple times during, of course, July. We got another rain in early August. It's not a failure, but it's surely not what it could be. And I guess if I had to take the unders, I'd be under in terms of the yields that were reported from USDA for Illinois and Iowa states, those states only, which on corn were like 206 for Illinois and 203 in Iowa. Does any one of you have a guess which state will do better at the end?
I think Iowa's going to beat out Illinois for yield average this year. There are 40 counties below the Shelbyville moraine, and they account for those. It's going to milk the average down.
Yeah, that's what I had. When I say APH, maybe not from a crop insurance standpoint, let's say maybe a 5-year average or something like that, because APH maybe goes back a little too far for us to really be on target for what we're talking about here, I think.
So again, think about declining yields from what USDA indicated in August for at least Iowa and Illinois. We'll let Pro Farmer get the rest of the tour, but if there was a big disappointment, it's in the pod and the pod numbers, and of course the nodes that are on the northern half of Illinois and Iowa as we look to both of those states. For some reason, we just didn't get the numbers that we were hoping for, and I think this is something that will come forward in next week's tour. Any closing comments, gentlemen?
Look for variability in a season like this, and we're finding some variability.
Yeah.
That pulls averages down a little bit.
And how many years you been doing this now?
About 50 years.
You got 50 years of experience here. I've got 44. How about you?
You know, probably 5 to 7, one way or another. We're going doing these things.
So we've been looking at a lot of crops over a lot of years. This is an okay crop. It's not a great crop. It's going to be variable. It's going to be hard to get your arms around, and USDA will do their best job, but I think at the end, it's going to be somewhat disappointing from what USDA indicated in August. Again, thanks for tuning in to the AgResource Crop Tour in 2023. We're hopefully going to repeat this down in Brazil as we go forward, and we'll surely come back next year with our cast of characters to drive 1,700 miles to give you some influence on what crops are doing in the 2 key I states, which represent the #1 and #2 corn producing states in the United States. Thanks again.